Hey, welcome back to another My Sales Day podcast. I am really excited that you've joined for the first show in 2026. Today, we have a special treat for you because we're going to tackle the big topic of AI. As a seller, you got a lot of questions about what it means, not just today, tomorrow, and this year, but in your career. So hopefully, me and senior executive at the company Pivotal, Jason Tsai, will answer some of these questions for you. In the meantime, if you are not already a subscriber of the My Sales Day newsletter, head over to mysalesday.io and sign up. Yes, you need a 90-second read in your mailbox every day to remind you of good selling hygiene and help you with best practices. It's a 3-week trial, so see what it's going to do to change your world. mysalesday.io. Now, sit back and enjoy my show with Jason Tsai. Jason Tsai, welcome to the My Sales Day podcast, the first one of 2026, I might add. How are you today, Jason?
Hooray. Honored. I'm honored to be here, sir. I'm excellent. How are you?
Really great, great. Thank you. And as you can see behind me, the sun is out. It's dry, and that's a rare thing in the winter time, so spirits are high.
Here as well. I'm in England.
That's right.
Uh,
You're in London. Why don't you share a little bit about where you are? How
not
dark and cold is it right now?
not known for the sun and dryness, and true to form, it is neither sunny nor dry today.
Yeah, well, neither of us are on the east coast of the United States where it's probably 10 degrees right now, so.
Fair enough.
Hey, I'm excited you're with us on the show because your knowledge and expertise in AI matches the curiosity of the My Sales Day listener. They are going to be very excited about the show when we post the subject matter. They want to know how it's going to change their selling lives, how it's going to change their careers. And of course, you and I want to know that too. We don't have all the answers, and we certainly don't have a crystal ball, but we're going to try today. We're going to try to put a dent and solve some things. Most importantly, I want to provide some tangible thoughts and hopefully action items for the listener today. So that's the task that I have for both of us. Is that something that you're up for?
I'm up to the challenge, my friend.
I like that. I like that. And you wouldn't be here if I knew you weren't.
Well,
Before we start with what you're doing at Pivotal, your current function, why don't you bring the audience up to date in a summarized format, of course, on this illustrious career you've had? Because you have had great stops at some really good companies and you've achieved a lot. So, in your words, talk to us a little bit about what you've done and how it got you to where you are today at Pivotal.
yeah. All right. So I started actually my career, funny enough, as a sales assistant.
Hey,
A radio sales assistant. But I very quickly flipped over to the agency side to get into media planning, which I did for quite a while. And sort of not too long into that media career, I really realized I moved into digital, and that ends up being kind of the red thread of my career. This kind of idea of technology driven evolution.
mm-hmm.
So anyway, like I'm doing the agency thing. I rode the online wave, the social wave, the mobile wave, and after riding those waves, I was like, you know what, maybe it's time for something different. I moved over to the publisher side at CBS Interactive, the artist formerly known as CNET Networks.
Got
And
it.
that's where I really started learning about the discipline of sales, what really goes into it, really trying to get in the trenches with the salespeople and the RevOps folks and the CS folks. And that was really great and enlightening, and that's something that's sort of stuck with me through my career. I went after that over to Visa to lead a content center of excellence for a handful of years, and then actually ended up back in the advertising world as the CMO of an ad tech company called Captify,
Hmm.
here in England. And after that, I took some time off, and having my sort of natural nerdy tendencies, I fell very predictably down the AI rabbit hole.
Hmm.
Um, spent a lot of time really kind of understanding how to evolve my own sort of personal way of working, my OS, if you will,
Mm.
and really made some really significant headway in terms of goosing my own productivity. And being the nerd that I am, I started talking to people about that, and kind of came to the realization that like 95% of them were like, yeah, I get that this AI thing is going to be really cool, and I know it can give all this value to me. I just can't find the time to figure out how. Um,
Mm.
and so that sort of made a little light bulb go off in my head. Like, I probably could make a business out of this. And so I started building that. And not too long after I started building it for myself, I happened to have lunch with an old boss of mine who was like, "Hey, I run this growth studio called Pivotal. I've been looking to build what you're building. Just come build it with me." And so that's where we
Perfect.
are today.
Awesome. Great story. So, talk to us a little bit about what Pivotal does, obviously, so we have context before we dive into some of the tangible things that the sellers are going to want
Yeah.
to hear our
So
opinions on.
so Pivotal does a pretty broad range of things. Like we're a growth studio, and we're operator led. So you could kind of think of us like a consultancy, but we don't really stop at just handing over a strategy deck, right? We take it through the implementation. We kind of get in the trenches with the clients, and kind of embed in their teams to make sure that the whatever transformation, whatever pivot we are trying to help them achieve, is actually getting done, right?
Okay.
And so these days, if you're thinking about, well, where are the business opportunities? Where are these sort of pivotal moments where I'm gonna either be under threat because of the conditions being what they are, or I'm gonna take this turn and I'm going to turn that into a real opportunity. On the opportunity side, AI is very, very prominent in that conversation. So the group that I
Sure.
lead is about AI enablement, and what we do is really get get inside of our clients' workflows. Really start to understand, like, okay, what is it? How do you guys make your sausage? And then what are the parts of that process that can be sped up, improved, um, and yeah, evolved, um,
Yeah. Enhanced.
with
Yeah.
robots. Yeah, with
Right.
robots. And so
Right.
then we recommend a suite of robots. We don't usually build our own technology. We can, but we
Mm.
find that most times clients don't need that from us on the AI front. What they typically need is for somebody to tell them, hey, for what you're trying to do, these are the big opportunities. These are the things that robots do really well. This is the collection of robots. We'll help you bring them in. We'll help you get them configured, and we'll help your people really understand and be motivated to use them, which is a big piece that a lot of um,
Mm.
technology folk have been ignoring for years, surprisingly.
Yeah, but like every other technology that we've seen in the last 20, 30 years that have been, quote, game changers, there is adoption resistance, and that is on our agenda a little bit towards the end of this session. Um, Let me, and thank you for that. That's very helpful. Let me dive into our agenda today. The first item on the agenda is I do want your perspective on the latest and or let's just say where we are today on AI as an enablement tool, as an enablement source for sales orgs. And as you know, because we know each other and we've done our homework to prepare for the show, the My Sales Day audience is comprised of sellers, but also sales managers, people who are running teams. So we obviously want to hear kind of your perspective, given your clientele, et cetera, and experiences. Where is AI right today? Number two, I think it's going to be a really interesting topic to talk about how specific and requisite sales actions and skills may or may not be affected by AI. I think this is going to be really helpful, and this is where we're holding ourselves accountable to provide some tangible help and thoughts for the listeners out there. Number three, I heard you say a line when we talked recently that I thought was really interesting on how sellers should learn more from AI than they teach AI. Like right now, I feel like I teach AI more than I'm learning. And I think it's very interesting for us to talk about that as a third topic. And then number four, if we get there, it is going to be a little bit on adoption resistance, because we know that sometimes new technologies can be scary to some folks.
This one in
Although,
particular.
yeah, although the listenership we have at my sales day tend to be a little bit more sophisticated against most sellers. I don't say that just because I'm incredibly biased and in love with my listeners and my readers, but I just know through anecdotal evidence and hard evidence that adoption might not be a problem, but yet that's a big subject, so we should talk about that as well. Let's go back to number one. Number one is the current state. Talk to us on what you think are the rudimentary kind of elements where AI can help sellers, but where we are today with those elements.
Yeah, so I would say that in terms of AI and sales, I don't think we're in the like experimental phase anymore. I think we've graduated beyond that, where a lot of these tool sets are very mature and very reliable in terms of the outputs that they can produce. So where I think we are now is in more of a sort of uneven adoption phase, let's call it, right? So you have a bunch of great tools out there that are sort of bespoke to sales, right? Like that are created with the intention of helping sellers. Plus, you have the ChatGPTs and the Geminis and the Claudes, right, and the sort of general purpose tools that also have really meaningful ability to help sellers do what they do. Right?
Give us an example on some of the, maybe even the brand names or the platforms or those tools that you're talking about that are
Yeah.
germane for the sales community.
Gong is a great example. Really, really interesting company. Have been around for a while,
Yeah.
And do a really good job of taking what effectively started as a call transcription business, right? But connecting that to your CRM. So now that I have all this unstructured transcript data from every sales call that I've recorded, now I can see, okay, what tends to have a better close rate, right? What are the trends? What are the shared characteristics of the conversations that end up closing versus the ones that don't? And now I can extract that intel and say like, it's this kind of language, or it's when we address an objection this way that
Mm.
works versus that doesn't. And now you can pull that back into the marketing, you can pull it back into the sales training, all that kind of good stuff, right? So that's just
Very
one
handy.
example
Yeah.
of many things that have been built over years now, to the point where they're reliably delivering really, really good value for lots of people.
Right.
Uh,
Good.
and yet, there's still, again, like I talk to a lot of sales teams, and I talk to a lot of them that still are like, yeah, we've got like a corporate subscription to ChatGPT or Gemini,
Mm.
and that's kind of all we got. And so that's what I mean by the sort of uneven adoption. There are these teams that are like, we're AI native, we've got, 3 sellers, and we're covering all this ground because they're augmented in a way with all this this technology that just enables them to do a lot more selling, right? I always kind of come back to that Salesforce data point of like
Mm.
the average seller only spends about 30% of their time actually selling. You have these companies now that have been able to really increase that number, and really increase their revenue per head as a result of that. And then you have a lot of teams that are sort of, I I want to be able to do that, but I've got a little bit of a slower, or a lot of a slower adoption curve to get there.
So everybody knows, to your point about the let's say the sales team that is hooked only on into chat, that they're running prospecting emails through there. They might be sophisticated in thinking that chat could help with proposal creation, which I think it very much could be
Absolutely can.
an important element. Um, what else are you seeing with some of these companies and or individuals that are just baseline, not and or more importantly, what like where do you go next after you've got the baseline of the prospecting, the messaging scripts? Where do you go next after that if you're a sales org and or an individual? How do you take it to the second level?
Well, so let's take prospecting, right, as an example of like, I've identified a company that I want to target, and now I want to find the people to talk to in that. So
Hmm.
like a very narrow slice of the prospecting workflow, right? Step one's maybe like, okay, well, maybe I'm even, maybe I'm first asking ChatGPT. I'm just like, can you find me any of the marketing people at this company? And
Hmm.
maybe it finds a couple. Maybe you get to the point next where you're like, I know about deep research now. So in ChatGPT, I will use deep research to see if it can find me the marketing people at this company. And maybe you're, a little bit more successful with that. But even if you are, it's still every company you got to search individually, right?
Right.
So level two is a system like Clay or Apollo or some of these other sort of lead prospecting sort of tools that enable you to say, okay, I've got a list of 500, 5,000 companies, and I want to find all the marketing people at those companies that fit this criteria. And then now I also want to enrich that data. I want their email addresses. I want their phone numbers. I want um, the last thing they posted on LinkedIn. I want any news that they've been in. I want a short analysis of the company's last quarterly earnings report, right? All that kind of stuff. Great. You
Hmm.
could get it before, but you can't get it at scale. You have something like Clay, now you can get that at scale,
Okay.
right?
And
With a
then
robot going on.
further refine it to the point where 5,000 might be too much. I need 50. And
Yeah,
just keep loading your params into the filtering process.
yeah, exactly. Or maybe thinking before like 500 is too much, but now if I don't have to do all of that work of going out and finding these people, crafting the email specifically to them, or researching them so that I can personalize the email outreach to them, and going through that process 50 times. Maybe that's why you could only handle 50 before. So if you outsourced most of that to robots, now maybe you can handle 100.
Right. One of the areas we talk about a lot in the newsletter, the My Sales Day newsletter, is value proposition. And where I see AI fitting in, and I want to check this against your experience with any of your clientele, is that the old way of doing value props inside of a company was the marketing people go away and they craft a message. And if the company is sophisticated and they have some pretty good sales leadership is part of that conversation too. So they're just not the receivers of a message that was basically crafted by people who don't live on the street. Either way, there's a message. And more often than not, it's a one size fits all. AI obviously can fit in here and take that message, run it against the objectives and the strategies of a particular client, say, what's the best messaging script of our value proposition against what we know about this clientele? Are you
Yeah,
seeing any of your clients do that yet? Are they embarking
yeah.
on that?
So a good example of this is verticalization, right? So you, as a value proposition, you might have a sort of generic, like, okay, here's the type of value that we provide, and maybe you have a case study, right? But like, in a specific industry, let's say automotive, their challenges are a little bit different. The way that the core value is still the same, but the way that you present that value, the case study that you bring along with that, the language that you use around it needs to be different. Um,
Mhm.
and what AI does in this case is give you the ability to really just sort of version that value proposition really easily and really specifically, right, to the point where you can define really narrow segments. So maybe it's not even automotive, right? Maybe it's um, family automotive
Right.
versus, like sports cars or
Sure.
stuff.
Minivans versus sedans versus sports
Yeah,
cars.
yeah,
Right. Right. Sure. When I hear that, given your media background and my media background, I always envision a battle between the enablement and or solutions marketing people, whatever name you want to define that department with, and the salespeople, because you're gonna have some sellers who are gonna just go do that on their own,
right.
and people in the organization, and you've been in RevOps, you've been in a support role, might be like, well, I can help you with that stuff too, because we want to still stay on brand with our messaging, and we want to make sure that we're very true
Yeah,
to what we can deliver and what we do stand for.
for sure. But I've also been in the scenario, right, where I've been asked for that stuff. Like, can I have it for these XYZ verticals? I'm like, I can't give it to you. I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the people to be
Right.
able to produce all that stuff. Now, today, I wouldn't have to say no to that. You know what I mean?
Totally. Totally. And or you could trust, I mean, in certain situations, you trust the seller to do it. Come back to me. Let me take a look at it.
Yeah,
Fine. Looks
that's
great.
another thing that that you can do with these with ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever, is use it for like governance and pressure testing, right? So you could
Right.
create a gem, a custom GPT, a Claude project, whatever it is, that basically knows this is what good looks like. Okay, rep A, you've created your own pitch. Just feed it into this and get it to grade it. I post on LinkedIn a lot. I have a grader for my LinkedIn posts, and I don't, it's not like everything that it tells me back. I'm like, oh yes, must do that. Thank you, robot. but but it's a good way to just make sure that I've covered all the right bases and that I'm not saying anything that sort of conflicts with what my sort of core mission is or anything like that, right? Like there's a lot of instances like that where where you can get value from these robots as like just a double checker.
And I am glad you brought that up, because that's a big way that I refer to, or that I rely on chat, which is messaging scripts. And oftentimes, even though it's learning who I am and it learns my tone and my approach and all those things, I don't like what it comes back with. But it comes back with something that makes me think that I need to work on it and either add my touch, or sometimes it does help. But I never trust it implicitly. And I'm glad there's in some of these features the language that says AI should be double checked. I'm glad it reminds me of that. I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't just grab it and run. We have, through this thread, drifted into the second agenda item, which is looking at different functions and different sales skills. We've covered prospecting, crafting proposals. I think proposals are a big part of how AI can help. Gone are the days where I think the seller needs to just let the enablement people create a proposal and then send it off. All the sales teams that I managed, I encouraged the sellers to work in a collaborative way with the enablement people, because they knew what that particular customer wanted to see in the proposal. But in addition to that, I think proposal crafting has kind of gone sideways in the last few years, or last decade maybe, where we're shoving too much into these decks, into these proposals. Buyers aren't reading proposals like they used to. They want to know, what's the top line? What am I getting? What's the value? And I think AI can really help in that regard too. We hit value prop and customization. We drifted into messaging and scripting, which is, I think, a very big thing. I remember a conversation when you and I were in San Francisco running around together way back when. There was a gentleman, maybe he's listening, Jeff Veit. He ran the Visa buying at J. Walter Thompson. You remember those guys?
Hmm.
And I remember Jeff said on a Tuesday, I'm going to call you tomorrow, but I can't do it until 5 p.m. And we were at the point where we were ready to negotiate. And I knew he was calling to negotiate. This is pre-chat. And I remember, and I knew exactly how that negotiation was going to go. So I spent a good portion of those 24 hours creating a script for me so that when Jeff called the next day at 5 p.m., I was going to be ready and I could present my best case. Sure enough, he came at 5 p.m. the next day, ready to negotiate, even though that's not what he announced he was there to do. I'm not saying that I got a chunk out of Jeff. Hi, Jeff. But I'm saying that it made me feel confident because again,
Yes.
my responsibility is to get as much as I can for my company, for me. And so I think negotiating scripts, messaging scripts are a big thing where AI can help. Are you seeing that level of usage with your clientele
Yeah,
these
I would
days?
say yes, and I would say this actually extends beyond sales too, and beyond scripts, right? Like the idea of um, a robot, please impersonate this type of person or this
Whoa.
specific person and give me feedback or simulate a job interview or simulate a negotiation in voice mode even on ChatGPT, right? Like these are things that again, like for pressure testing of the idea to make
Yeah,
sure that you, as the seller, are ready for battle. Um, Getting those reps in and
totally.
getting that kind of, okay, have I hit it from all these angles? Have I considered this potential objection? Right? Robots are really good for just be like, let me try to poke. And again, they'll give you a list of 10 things back and like, these are all the possible objections. And like five of them you can throw right out, but like maybe two of them are
Right.
good and that's worth it.
Well, in any off, first of all, I love this topic. Objection handling is a core skill, inarguably the most important core skill, right up there with value proposition, right up there with listening. And I talk about it a lot in the newsletter 2 times a month just because it's so important. If you are a seller and you don't know how to pick through a brick wall with a plastic spoon to make progress, if you don't know how to change somebody's perception or influence a decision or just change them a little bit, then you're not going to get very far. And to add an element of practice and role playing that is going to enhance my ability when I'm in front of that buyer, that is gold. Because even though, and readers of my sales day know that I constantly harp on them, grab a friend, get into the conference room and role play the scenario. It doesn't have to be more than 5 minutes. Grab a friend, get on the Zoom, role play the scenario. It doesn't have to be more than 5 minutes. But having another alternative through a machine, a chat, GPT type resource would be really, really helpful because you can't practice enough in sales.
Yeah. And these are things that you can sort of DIY it with ChatGPT in
Yeah.
voice mode, but there are also companies that create um, experiences, tools for the express purpose of coaching sellers
Yeah, I've
in
seen
an
some of
environment.
them, and I'm not gonna name them. I think they're pretty unsophisticated right now. They'll obviously get more sophisticated, but at least they're there and acknowledging that that is an element of the sales game, which needs a lot of attention. When I was running sales teams pre-chat, one of the first things I taught my management was how to run practice sessions, how to run role play sessions, because that's the best way to prepare for the real time scenario when you knew that the question was going to come up or they were going to fire that objection at you. Look, every company and every offering has a list of common objections, but there's maybe only two or three that are the ones that are so recurring and or so hard that you have to continually practice. And so any help that you can get would be really, really helpful. Let me pivot now and go through this list. I promised this earlier. The list of other skills. We obviously covered a few
Yeah.
where AI can enhance the experience. For those who regularly read my sales day, they know that I cover a breadth of topics in a given calendar year. We publish 6 days a week. The sixth day on Saturday is always about mindfulness and self care because sellers do need to make that a part of their routine because the sales journey is so rigorous and so harsh that on the weekends you got to figure out how to rest and recharge as much as you have to work on your skills Monday through Friday. But Monday through Friday, I'm hitting people with a 90-second skill recommendation every day, of which maybe of the 84 topics I cover a year, again, back to those 15 core or 20 core, we've hit a few of them. Listening is one we haven't talked about yet. You brought up Gong. What about how AI can help in the face-to-face interaction when I'm sitting there with a customer and I need to obviously figure out if I said the right things? Is it cool to like record yourself? I mean, you don't we have to announce that we're doing that if I'm in a face-to-face meeting that I'm recording this message? People are kind of used to it on Gong and video by now, but what about the face-to-face?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's still, that's a little awkward, particularly if you're like out at a restaurant or something, right? But I have been
Yeah,
in
social
meetings where,
selling notwithstanding. Social selling
yeah,
notwithstanding.
where people have said like, "Hey, can I turn this on so that we can both just get a recap of this and we don't have to have our notebooks out and we don't have to be, we can just talk." And I think that's reasonable. Um, Now, having said that, like your kind of question about like, can it help me in the moment? The answer is no, right? And there's some actually, even Gemini. You might notice if you're in any Google Meets recently, there's a little bubble that's popping up that says, "Hey, if you want Gemini to be like on and listening and then answer questions while you go, you could do that." Right. So, and I know there are companies also trying to build robots that are listening to your question and just sort of bringing up little possible next topics or possible, responses and things like that in real time. Those are not those are not good. But the way that I think about how AI helps in this scenario is number one, freeing up some of your time spent on that 70%, right? So you can go have more of these in-person meetings. And number two, enabling you to the last point that we just talked about, enabling you to really be prepared for those meetings. So you have the rep, you've taken the batting practice before game time, and you have that much better chance of success when you get in the game.
Yeah, and you're right. And preparation is huge. I'm working on, as we speak, February content for 2026. And it's funny, I looked at one of the topics and it was meeting management as the theme. And I think the readership probably gets a little sick of me pushing agenda creation and usage, but I just don't know of one other tool that is as helpful for a seller than an agenda creation. And what goes into that is writing down your questions ahead of time so that we're not expected on demand to respond with the perfect question at the right time, but yet application of an agenda and knowing the questions that you have going in free your brain up a little bit more to listen closely and say, well, geez, this is an important follow-up question I got to ask right now. So I love that you bring up that AI is going to help you do better preparation because as buyers, you and I both see that I'm a buyer too. You were a professional buyer for many years. We know when that seller is not prepared.
Hmm. Yeah, and you don't like these days, like the competition stiffer than back in the day, I think. And
I like
so, yeah,
that.
that's a good way to just kind of get yourself like, I don't have time for that.
I also think something you said about the listening, if you can get somebody in real time, face to face to agree, and you basically say, look, I got to be honest, I'm recording this because I'm trying to get better to be of better service to you. So I run this through chat and I learn, how I can be better, a better resource for you, but also to take notes for us too. And I'm happy to send them to you as well.
Yeah.
If you can do that and you can sell that, and if you study that afterwards, you are going to be more mindful down the line of those real-time situations where your listening is better. And also you're not as reliant on taking notes because you're focused on listening and you can
Yeah.
really
Can be present.
absorb more. Yeah. Shout out to Brian McFarland. Brian and I love to agree to disagree on a few things, but he's a first class seller. His idea on note taking involves this. And he thinks that when devices come out in meetings, it just creates distance between him and the customer. I buy some of that, but on the other hand, if framed the way I'm framing it here, that I'm trying to be of better service to the prospect or the buyer, who's going to argue with that?
Yeah. I mean, it's all
I see.
personal. Like, it's interesting. Sam Altman, right? Like Mr. Technology,
Yeah.
open guy. He's like, I have to write everything down. I use pen and paper because the motion of the writing is what helps him retain the
Mm-hmm.
information. Great,
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Yeah. Um, Here's one on the list of my 15 core skills. We talked about negotiating a little bit. We talked about objection handling, which I thought was outstanding. Prospecting, a core skill. We know where that stands. That was kind of like, kindergarten for AI, how it intersects with enhanced selling. Qualifying and probing, another one that I think qualifies under the same context of Gong is going to help if people do that, or if you're face to face, getting a recording somehow, the seller acknowledging when they missed an opportunity to go deeper. I don't know how AI helps in real time. It's just going to be after the fact.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, other than again, like the preparation, right? If you go into that prepared and knowing these are the things, these are the bits of information that I need to extract, and you've had the time to internalize that before you go into the meeting, the odds that you leave the meeting with that information are much higher than
Yeah.
if you don't.
Yeah.
And I
What,
actually,
what,
this is a good question for you. Like, I don't think you'd get a lot of argument from anyone on these best practices, right? But like when people don't implement these best practices, why is it? Like, is it just do they just run out of time? Is that really all what it boils down to?
it's a time management issue. It's a habit issue. It's it's the pace of the sales life. I coined the term and use it constantly in my sales day, the sales life, which is a kind of overarching chapter that describes the frenetic nature and the pressure of everything a seller has to do. My sales day largely is an answer to that, to provide support and provide help, either through these types of shows or through a daily 90-second read to remind the seller to do this, to do that. I think it's the speed of business and it's the complexity of business. I don't think there's one reader out there of the newsletter or a listener of this show who's going to listen to me talk about agenda creation and say that that's either novel or stupid.
Right.
Everyone knows, but yet do they do it? So, as is the case with most successful paths in life, it's about discipline and focus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think there's anything different here. My fear when I saw AI bubbling up in the last couple of years was that sellers were going to feel that they could stop doing certain things, stop learning, stop growing their skills, stop certain behaviors, thinking that, well, I just run it through chat. Okay, But don't you appreciate that everyone's running it through chat? So the bar has just been raised. What's your differentiator in that case? A lot of times, differentiator is discipline and habit. So I think what you and I are in violent agreement about is just chat is a new habit, a new tool that needs to be incorporated to help. And we still have a lot of question marks about how it's going to help, but we have to use it to understand those answers.
Yeah. I would take it one beyond that, or like it's not just about using it, but that there is a right way and a wrong way to use it.
Hmm.
And I'll use the example of kids, right? So some kids, ChatGPT for them is a way for they something to do their homework for them. And for some kids, ChatGPT is a way that they can do way more research and pressure test their thinking and use it to produce a better piece of work that is at its core still theirs,
Hmm.
right? And there, so you can like one way is going to get you one thing. It's not going to grow your brain. Um, it's not going to build those muscles.
Hmm.
Um, and the other way is going to make you even smarter than you would have been without it, right?
Yeah.
So I look at this a lot the same way, and this sort of work equivalent of that is work slop is now the term for it, right? Where you might have somebody in your organization who's like, yeah, so I just gave the assignment to ChatGPT and I maybe read it and then I just cut and pasted it and sent it out. Versus like, okay, I gave the assignment to ChatGPT. It gave me about 50% goodness. I identified what that 50% was. I gave it direction on what the other 50% needed to be. I
Hmm.
edited it in this way. It still took me 30% less time than it would have before, but now I've ended up with a better product than I could have produced on my own. Um, that
I think
satisfies
this.
this
I
time.
think that was an excellent anecdote, and I love the comparison of that student who looks at it. Um, and there'll be a reckoning with certain people. Some people will overdose on it. I was fascinated at a family holiday function where invariably we're talking about, hey, wasn't that actor in this movie or was he in that movie? And of course, three people reach for their phones, and there was some 20 somethings in the room who are like, no, don't reach for your phone. Use your brain. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah,
Like,
very
you
cool.
know, so I don't think sellers should fear AI or overly celebrate AI. It's a tool, and definitely they need to know how to use it and stay up with things, or else they will get lapped. My overall appraisal on AI, if I can opine, is that use it whenever you can, but don't rely on it to replace your brain. And in fact, use it as a motivation to drive better human performance. And I think we're saying the same thing. And I define human performance as anything related to how one individual can help another individual make a decision. Ultimately, that's what we're doing in sales, right? We're influencing decisions, not in a manipulative manner, but in a consultative way through advisement and counsel. And I think AI can really step in and help in a big way there. If you're in a sales role, if you're a seller out there and you're hearing this, and if you're in a sales role and you're thinking, most of my buying and transactional elements are automated, then yeah, your future is highly predicated on your ability to leverage AI to its maximum capacity. But that's just mastery of all software and all platforms, right? AI just another one.
Yeah, but I mean, there's let's even just take the go back to the prospecting like outreach example, right? So yeah, any Yahoo can get a robot to quote unquote personalize an email and send out thousands of them. Okay, what's going to make somebody actually open your email? What's going to make somebody actually respond to it, right? So you have that time savings, you have the choice to just set the machine going and walk away, or you can come back to it and say like, okay, now I've set the machine going. Now I'm going to learn and I'm going to optimize the subject line and I'm going to be meticulous about testing the different ways that we can articulate the value proposition, different ways in, all these kinds of things, right? So you can, I guess, another way to say it is you can use AI to just do what you did before, faster and cheaper, or you can use that as a starting point and then use the house money that you earn back to figure out how to make it better.
Yeah. Yeah, and for all those sellers out there who are in a business where interpretation of value is a variable, okay, then figure out how AI can help you in that. Because it's not going to replace the human element. When you're on the spot with a customer, you need to interpret verbal data and verbal signals to customize your value prop on the spot. AI is not going to do that for you. And that was always my fear when I saw the over-enthusiastic reaction by some sellers in the last couple of years who were over-relying on it. I'm like, you're not going to be absolved of some really, really important selling skills because, of course, AI is not going to take over selling. You know, if you're in a business segment that is contingent on the consideration of the consideration of or for the application of your service, of your product, how to best use it. Okay, well, AI is not going to help you there either. You're going to have to learn how to be a consultant. And the fact that I loved hearing when you said that companies are actually analyzing how much time their sellers are selling. I'm delighted that that is something AI is going to help with, because as a former sales manager, I would cringe seeing those sellers glued to their email box, whatever they're doing, you know, the CRM reporting, all that stuff. It's like, get in front of a customer. That's the only way you sell. Get in front of the customer.
Yeah. But you, at the same time, right? So like, yeah, you see the 30% of their time selling. That number sort of makes you cringe, but at the same time, you're like, but I'm not surprised by it.
No, not at all.
Right?
Not at
Yeah.
all. Not at all. Let's wrap. I have time for either one of the two. The agenda item number 3 was the line: sellers should learn more from AI than they teach AI. I'm not sure we want to hit that as much as we want to hear the adoption resistance theme. What do you think?
I think we did touch on the first piece a little bit in
I
our
think so.
previous
I think so.
conversation. We haven't touched
Yeah.
on as much on the adoption.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's spend a minute or two on that. You will be back on the show. We're going to have you back, but let's just maybe look at this as a teaser for the next time that Jason is on with us here on the my Sales Day podcast. So, real quick, 1 or 2 minutes. What are your thoughts these days on adoption resistance and how do we break through to companies and help them?
I think that the hardest, but the part that people are missing, like we kind of mentioned it earlier, right? In the technology transformation context, right? The people that have been doing technology transformation for a while know that the tools themselves are really only half of the equation, sometimes less than half, right? Um, and it's really about motivating and and training the humans that are going to use those tools to get the value out of them, right? So from a manager perspective, from a CEO perspective, right? If I'm thinking about how am I going to get my team, my company on this track or accelerated down this track, what I am thinking about first is making it as specific as possible to their role, to their problems, to their pain that they're experiencing every day, right?
Hmm.
So there is a tendency to be like, AI, we got the AI, let's do the AI thing. You're like, what's the AI thing? You got to go back and look at what your to-do list is and figure out which of those things is the thing that's going to be the AI thing, and then you have to match the AI to that. And that's the piece where I feel like, some people unfortunately are getting left behind. Some people are curious enough and engaged enough to figure that out on their own, and to share, kind enough to share that with others in their teams. But I do think it's really about getting to the point where you can prove to somebody that this tedious thing that they have to do all the time can be made less tedious. And then all of a sudden you've got them leaning in, right? And then you can start to drive the momentum from there.
Well, listen, you're in a great position at Pivotal because there's a lot of confusion and mystery. And I thought your description here of let's do the AI thing is so perfect for, it's basically a statement of like, I don't know where to start, and that's where you're going to come in with Pivotal, and you're going to help and say, let's put down some objectives that are realistic, and then we'll build from there. And you will, and they will too. So
indeed.
Jason Tsai from Pivotal, it was entirely my pleasure. We got to cut you loose so you can get back to making sales at Pivotal and helping everybody get on this AI train. That means it's time for me to remind the listener why you listened and or watched this My Sales Day podcast. It's because you are trying to be the best sales professional you can be, even if it's a little thing that you picked up today from me and Jason, or by reading the My Sales Day newsletter every day. It could make a huge difference in your selling, but your mind has got to be open and you got to put in the work. Jason, thank you so much for joining. This was excellent. I really appreciated it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was real fun.
And remember, everyone, better habits equal better selling. Thank you for listening to My Sales Day. It was great having you here. For more, listen to our other episodes on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're there, leave us a review. I care what you think. And because I'm a seller like you, I got thick skin, so I can take anything you got. You can also visit mysalesday.io to join our email list and community dedicated to sellers just like you. My Sales Day is a podcast by sellers for sellers. And if you got something out of today's episode, help out a friend by sharing this episode with them. My Sales Day is proudly produced in partnership with Westport Studios. Views and opinions expressed by guests on My Sales Day are their own and may not reflect the views and opinions of their organization. Start your sales day the right way with My Sales Day. I'll see you in our next episode and in the daily newsletter.